This black girl stopped the court and told the judge that she was hungry. She shocked everyone with what she did. As Nia stepped in front of the judge, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. With a grave expression on his face, the judge sat behind the enormous oak desk. He was Judge Callisto, and regardless of the person in trouble, he had a reputation for following the law. Nia, a single mother, was in court due to $200 parking charges that she was finding difficult to pay. She tried to justify not having to pay the huge parking fine. As she stood tensely in front of the judge, he was being distracted by the audience members' whispers as they attempted to predict the result. "Order in the court," he shouted, banging his gavel. The court fell silent. Then, a high-pitched voice interrupted with a request for hamburgers. The tiny voice was speaking next to Nia, that was Nia's 6-year-old daughter, Maya. Nia and everyone else in the courtroom gasped. Normally, everyone would have laughed at Maya's innocent comment, but Judge Callisto's court was renowned for its severity. This kind of immature outburst was unprecedented and inexcusable. Nia's blush turned scarlet with shame. Had her 6-year-old just destroyed their hopes of escaping this situation? Nia gave Maya a worried glance, but the young child only stood next to her mother, her eyes wide and innocent. Judge Callisto appeared unconcerned, though. In contrast to the others, his eyebrows shot up in surprise, but his face was devoid of rage. Nia bowed before Maya, swiftly telling her in a whisper that they were not allowed to interrupt the judge. They had hoped that Maya's presence would placate the judge, but she now worried that this immature outburst would anger him even more. She was a little ashamed, especially after realizing that they were probably seen as careless because of Maya's outburst. Judge Callisto cast a sidelong glance at the tiny interloper, who was restless beside her mother. "Did you say hamburgers, young lady?" the judge questioned Maya in an unexpectedly kind tone. His question was distinct from the harsh statements he typically made in court. With curiosity about Maya's reaction and the judge's potential next move, everyone was staring at her. Nia held her breath, praying that they wouldn't regret it. However, Maya chose not to respond to the judge's query. Nia glanced worriedly at Maya, who didn't seem to be aware of the tension she'd created. Rather than the judge, the small girl's large brown eyes appeared to be fixed on a painting of a somber-looking man wearing a wig that was hanging on the wall. Nia had a 200% heart rate. This was not working out. Judge Callisto, though, did not blow up as Nia had expected. He just turned his eyes from Maya to Nia. For a little while, the quietness persisted, giving Nia the impression of a bug under a microscope. Judge Callisto eventually resumed his speech and questioned Maya. "Is there anything you'd like to tell me, young lady?" Maya moved forward toward the judge's bench before Nia could respond. She nodded and said, "Yes, sir." She complained to the judge that her stomach was growling loudly. She was getting hungry from all the talking, and she and her mother still hadn't had breakfast. Nia became even more mortified. Her daughter was requesting food while she was attempting to clarify a critical matter in front of a severe judge. The morning rush had been something else. Even though she knew they ought to have stopped for something to eat before heading to court, getting Maya dressed and making sure she had everything she needed were her tasks, making up reasons for Maya's school and work while enduring rush-hour traffic. Now, the judge might see them as even worse. Despite her daughter's candor appearing nice and even endearing, Nia started to apologize. But the judge interrupted her with a slight wave. He warned Maya that, particularly when she was hungry, the court might be a lengthy and dull place. "Why don't you come up here and tell me more about these hamburgers?" he continued. Everyone was taken aback by the judge's inquiry, and even Judge Callisto appeared a little uncertain after inquiring about hamburgers. Maya looked at her mother to ask for permission, and Nia, not knowing what to anticipate, could only nod. Maya skittered joyfully over to the formidable judge's desk, smiling. She went to the tiny platform before the magistrate's chair with a startled expression. Judge Callisto reclined in his chair and observed her approach. Things in his courtroom did not typically proceed this way. Everyone in the courtroom appeared to be holding their breath, anticipating Judge Callisto's next move. Was he still upset over being cut off? Would he punish Maya for disobeying the judge? Nobody, not even Nia, could have anticipated the judge's unexpected response. Nia's life was a never-ending battle between employment, childcare, and making ends meet as a single mother of her energetic 6-year-old daughter, Maya. With the exception of Maya waking up sniffling and coughing, which was a major warning that a cold was approaching, every morning was an experiment in balancing these demands. Nia had to retrieve Maya's medication before work, but she also had to get to her bakery shift on time. Nia started getting ready as soon as she could. She packed a tiny bag with tissues and mints, wrapped Maya in warm clothes, and made sure she had her favorite stuffed animal for comfort. Sadly, her wishes went unmet as she hurried Maya out the door, praying that traffic wouldn't be too bad. All of the traffic lights appeared to be red, making the typically short drive to the drugstore feel incredibly difficult. Nia was already running late when she made it to the store. Worry was in the air as soon as Nia's car got into the pharmacy parking lot. Regretfully, every parking space was reserved. She noticed a vacant place next to the door, but it was reserved for wheelchairs. Though Nia knew better than to park there, time was of the essence. She glanced at the empty store and quickly did some math. Nia made a poor choice. As Maya was coughing in the back seat, she told herself, it will only take a few minutes. She parked in the wheelchair space, figuring there wouldn't be any cars waiting for her and that she would be in and out quickly. But for single mothers, things never turn out well. The few minutes stretched to 10, then 15, yet the drugstore line moved slowly, taking an age to sort out each person's prescription before Nia. After obtaining the medication, Nia virtually ran back to the car. As she approached her car, she started to worry, since she felt a little bad for taking a chance with the parking space. Had her absence been excessive? When she noticed the vivid orange envelope nestled beneath her windshield wiper, her concerns were confirmed. For parking illegally, there was a $200 parking charge. Nia felt the number like a gut punch. For Nia, whose budget was already limited, $200 was a significant blow. It accounted for over half of her weekly grocery spending. How was she going to pay for this? Over the next few days, Nia calculated and rationed. She accounted for lost time on everything, including gas for the car and her daily coffee. Finally, though, the $200 restriction on her budget was still a lot. Nia had to acknowledge the truth of the circumstance. She could not possibly afford such a charge. She was faced with a difficult choice: either she would pay the fine and miss rent payments each month, or she would appear in court and make her case. She wanted to back out at just the thought of traveling to court. Nia was nervous as the day drew near. Would the magistrate even give her reasoning a chance? Could she persuade him to overlook the ticket? Her confidence nearly evaporated as she walked into the towering courthouse. Nia watched the judge leaf through the case file, her heart sinking with every second that passed. She prepared a strong defense, but the judge didn't seem to be persuaded. He questioned her sharply, concentrating only on the parking infraction and not the reasons why. His tone was so harsh that Nia felt he would not only stick to the fine but raise it as a punishment for taking up the court's time. However, she had no idea how everything would change when her daughter did what she did. Nia was about to give up when she heard an unplanned outburst from the judge. At that point, Maya, who had remained silent the entire time, spoke out and asked for hamburgers. Prior to her arrival, Nia had not taught Maya anything about court hearings, but the last thing she expected was for her to blurt out a comment like that. Nia apologized, explaining that the morning rush had prevented them from having breakfast. She believed that this was yet another poor decision and worried that the judge would conclude she was not only a careless driver but also a careless mother. Maya and Judge Callisto were seated side by side in front of the inquisitive court. At this point, everyone, even Nia, sympathized with the young child, who was obviously just trying to escape the somber environment and get some food. The judge spoke to Maya directly, leaning forward and using a very soft voice. He informed the young girl that he only needed to ask her a few questions, even though he knew it had been a hard morning for her. "What type of work does Nia do?" was his first query. The judge's gentle tone gave Maya courage, and she responded right away. Her mother put in a lot of overtime at the bakery, producing delicious cakes and sweets. She occasionally even worked late shifts as a waitress at a local restaurant. The judge just nodded, his curiosity piqued, and he asked more mild questions. He gained additional insight into Nia's life, managing several jobs as a single mother. Maya was 6 years old when she realized how difficult her mother's situation was. She described how Nia frequently had to put in long hours at work in order to make ends meet, which left them with little free time. As they listened to Nia's story through her daughter, the courtroom grew silent. People who had previously just considered her to be guilty of a parking infraction were now aware of her true identity, a single mother struggling to support her family. Even Maya's disclosure of the tragic sequence of events that led to Nia's predicament was heartbreaking. Maya's words made Nia's heart ache. Although she hadn't intended to divulge this private knowledge, Maya's candor had a way of revealing things. Nia felt a rush of melancholy come over her as she thought back to her past heartbreak. In reality, her role as a single parent involved more than just balancing her profession as a childcare provider. It also involved a never-ending fight against the betrayal that had led to her situation in the first place. Nia had started seeing Darius, her boyfriend of 4 years, when Maya was just 3. After being released from prison for a small-time possession charge, Darius had assured Nia that he was drug-free. He promised to dedicate himself fully to their small family once more. Love and hope had blinded Nia, and she had returned his trust. Nia had been diligently saving money for her own college degree back then. It was supposed to be a new beginning for all of them. Nia envisioned a future with Darius in which she would advance professionally, and the two of them would raise their daughter, Maya. When Darius observed her tenacity and even volunteered to help, Nia began to trust his newfound dedication. But one morning, the blind confidence she had placed in him was shattered. When she awoke, all of her savings had vanished, along with Darius. Nia's discovery that he had not only taken her money but also fled the area with her younger sister was the hardest part. Behind Nia's back, Darius had been having a hidden affair with her sister. Nia's sister was tricked by his empty promises and ultimately betrayed her own sister to go with him. Nia was devastated. Not only had Darius stolen her future, but he had abandoned her and his daughter, leaving them both heartbroken and alone. Despite Nia reporting the theft, the money was never recovered. She was left to pick up the pieces as a single parent. After experiencing deep-seated heartbreak due to betrayal and the loss of both her sister and partner, Nia was forced to give up on her college ambitions. The financial strain caused by the stolen cash meant she had to concentrate on working numerous low-paying jobs just to get by. This tragic incident was the reason why she thought a $200 parking penalty was a small fortune. The judge and every other person in the courtroom paid close attention to Maya's account. The judge appeared to be truly moved by the young girl's responses. He probed further, trying to learn more details about Nia's predicament and the difficulties they were facing. Judge Callisto's viewpoint seemed to shift with each response. Nia was relieved to see a man whose eyes now held a touch of empathy and understanding, instead of the inflexible and uncompromising judge she had heard so much about. At last, he did something that surprised everyone. Judge Callisto completely defied convention by addressing Maya directly and asking, "Well, Maya, since your mommy broke the parking rule, what do you think her punishment should be?" The courtroom held its breath. This was unprecedented in his court. Nia's stunned eyes grew wide. Did the judge really think a 6-year-old had an opinion? However, Maya seemed unfazed by the unexpected question. Instead, she shot the judge a sympathetic glance and told him that he was a capable judge and ought to make the decision this time. There was actual laughter from everyone, the first that anyone could recall in that courtroom. Not even Judge Callisto could suppress a smile. In the often hostile courtroom, it appeared that Maya's candor and innocence had disarmed him. The judge would then decide, what, though? Everyone waited anxiously for his reply. Judge Callisto reclined in his chair, seemingly deep in thought. Then, he abruptly raised his hand and called for a brief recess. As everyone got to their feet, the judge leaned in and whispered some instructions to the bailiff. The bailiff nodded and left through a side door. A little later, murmurs of confusion buzzed through the courtroom. What was the judge intending to do? When the bailiff returned, he was carrying a brown paper bag. The judge took it from him and handed it to Maya with a grin. "You're welcome, young lady," he stated gently. He informed her that they had to tend to her rumbling stomach before the court could proceed. Juice boxes and sandwiches were neatly packaged inside the bag. Maya's smile stretched across her face, her eyes wide with joy. Nia was flooded with emotions. She had never imagined a courtroom could be the setting for such kindness. In their circumstances, even a tiny gesture like this meant a great deal. The judge recalled the case to session after the unplanned food break, but everything felt different. Rather than making his typical snap decisions, Judge Callisto reviewed Nia's case carefully. He found that her driving record was clean and her legal background was impeccable. In fact, after 9 years, this was Nia's only parking infraction. The judge then turned to Nia and delivered his ruling, and everyone gasped at what he did next. He chose to dismiss the ticket. Applause erupted throughout the courtroom. It truly was a day of firsts. Relief flooded Nia's heart, as though a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. But the judge wasn't done. He produced a piece of paper and informed Nia that he recognized the struggles of being a single parent. He had compiled a list of available local resources for single mothers, including childcare support services and career training programs. Nia's eyes filled with gratitude. The dismissed ticket no longer mattered. When she had truly needed help, the judge had provided it. She stammered, unsure of how to express her thanks. Judge Callisto gave her an unexpected smile. As far as he was concerned, this was justice, with a dash of charity.